Equals there is a dreadful stillness in the air, like the world itself is holding its breath. My feet trace an all too familiar path down the cracked sidewalk of Maplewood, Texas, where every step I take sends tremors of the past radiating through my chest. The rusty metal of the old swings creaks softly in the distance as I ghost along the deserted park, the familiar sound echoing memories that refuse to fade. The once vibrant colors of the playground equipment have dulled with time, just like the hope I used to carry. I can still smell the faint aroma of barbecues past, mingling with the sweet scent of blooming magnolia trees. Even now, every fleeting breeze seems to whisper the tales of loyalty and betrayal. I stop at the park bench, an anchor point that had witnessed much of my life unfold. It is the same bench where I first kissed Clara, the sun caught in her auburn hair, casting radiant patterns on the evening grass. I laughed bitterly at the memory. There was a time when this town echoed with laughter, when the days stretched endlessly in front of us, untainted by malice. It is ironic how one can witness their life shatter like fragile glass, yet still feel a strange attachment to the very spots where joy once bloomed. Miles, are you daydreaming again? A voice shatters my reverie, pulling me back into the present. I keep my head down as if looking at the chipped paint on the bench will somehow shield me from reality. The voice belongs to Jenny, my sister, and the only one who has stuck around through thick and thin. She taps her foot impatiently, her brown eyes darkening with concern. We need to talk, all of this. She gestures broadly to the park, her frustration palpable. Isn't healthy. You can't keep circling the same old ground. You are better than this. I look up at her, forced to meet her gaze. All I see is the worry lining her forehead, a crease born not just from my choices, but from the rippling effects of those choices on our family. Jenny, you don't understand, I say, forcing the words out through clenched teeth. I have to see it one last time. I have to remind myself why I'm doing this. She narrows her eyes, placing her hands firmly on her hips, the very picture of resolve. What you're doing isn't right, Miles. Lua is just using you to stir up old problems. You'll be putting yourself out there again, and for what? To get hurt again. I turn away, not willing to draw attention to the burning sensation rising in my chest. I can't tell her that every fiber of my being yearns for something different, something sweet and comfortable, rather than the bitter reality I've had to face since that day. I want her to understand, but how can I explain that I will never move on until I avenge the past? She's not just going to walk away, Miles. You need to let it go, Jenny says, her voice softer now, tinged with a hint of desperation. You have a beautiful future waiting for you. Why jeopardize that beautiful future? I mutter, the words tasting sour on my tongue. What future? You know as well as I do that it is nothing but a lie, a facade that crumbles under the slightest pressure. We are who we are, shadows of our past. I can't pretend everything is fine. Her shoulders slump as she sighs, resignation seeping in. Maybe you can find peace, even if it means moving away from this madness. Peace, I scoff, the bitterness spilling over. You think I can find peace while they live large in their grandeur? They may have used me, played me like a pawn, but they will not win. The unyielding resolve in my sister's gaze falters for a brief moment as she steps back, the betrayal in my words landing squarely between us. You have to choose who you want to be, Miles. The angry person seeking revenge, or the brother who cares about family? I shake my head, frustration boiling over. I cannot let them win. I cannot be the fool who stands by while they feast on the spoils of our broken trust. They think they are untouchable. It is time to show them they are not. Maybe the only thing you will show them is that they accomplished what they set out to do, she counters, her voice breaking slightly. You have been fighting shadows for too long. I close my eyes, pushing my hands through my hair as images of that fateful night come rushing back like a relentless wave. The blaring sirens, the shattered glass, the betrayal carved into the faces of my so-called friends. Every single one of them turned away when I needed them most. They watched as my world spiraled into chaos without lifting a finger. My voice trembles. I cannot let their actions evaporate with time. They destroyed me, Jenny. I need to make them feel even just a fraction of that pain. She shakes her head slowly, the disappointment evident on her face. And what if that pain eats you alive? Just remember, not all battles have to end in bloodshed. I need them to feel the weight of their choices, I whisper, the darkness seeping into my heart and wrapping around my soul like a tight noose. I need to remind them of the illusion they have built around themselves. They will think they are invincible, but I will show them how fragile that really is. The air grows heavy with unspoken thoughts, laden with the tension that exists in moments of strained silence. Jenny lowers her voice to a gentle whisper. I just want you to be happy, Miles. Happy. The word unfurls like a cruel joke. To think of happiness in the wake of betrayal almost feels like a foreign concept. I blink, glancing back at the rusting swings, imagining Clara's laughter in the fleeting echoes. Those days are far gone, washed away by the tide of treachery and selfishness. I have a mission now, no, a calling. The past will not be buried under the burdens of the future. I will take care of it, Jenny, I promise. She reaches out, a hand on my arm, her touch grounding me briefly. Promise me one thing, Miles. If you begin to lose yourself in this mission, I want you to come back. You are not this person, this vengeful spirit. I nod, swallowing the dread settling in the pit of my stomach. I will try. But I know even as the words leave my mouth that the road ahead is shrouded in danger and darkness. Okay, Jenny steps back, surrendering for now, but I can see the worry in her eyes remains. Just know that I am here for you. You are not alone in this fight. My heart swells at her unwavering support, yet a gnawing feeling twists within me. I am bound for a path that may eventually lead to isolation, a place where none can follow. But as I look back at her one last time, something shifts within. This is about more than revenge now. It is about finding closure, about reclaiming the pieces of myself that they shattered long ago. With one last look at Jenny, I turn and walk away, the setting sun casting long shadows across the park. My thoughts swirl between vengeance and the hope for a resolution, contemplating the inevitable confrontation lying ahead. In that moment, I feel the pull of the past and the looming shadows of deceit, tightening their grip on my spirit like a vice. As I step off the path, heading towards the heart of Maplewood, I step not just into a world of old wounds, but also everlasting grudges. I will show them that their illusion of victory will soon dissolve into shadows once more. The haunting remnants of who I used to be echo in every turn of my thoughts, and they will pay for underestimating me. I can feel it in my bones, the return of control, the sweet taste of justice waiting just out of reach. I woke up the next morning, sunlight filtering through the thin curtains of my small bedroom. Streaks of golden light danced across the hardwood floor, and for a moment, just a moment, I felt the weight of yesterday's events lift from my shoulders. I had survived the confrontation with Bob, the smirk still plastered on his face as if he believed he was untouchable, but I had a plan. I had to stick to it, execute it flawlessly, if I wanted to unveil the charade he had maintained for far too long. The thought of finally exposing him sent a rush of adrenaline through my veins, overshadowing the morning grogginess clinging to me like a stubborn fog. After my shower, the water cascading over my body, I spent time pondering the details of my strategy. I had spent too many years watching him climb the corporate ladder, the sly looks he cast at my projects, the way he manipulated everything around him to appear more brilliant than he truly was. He was not as clever as he thought, and today would be the day I began to unravel his carefully woven tapestry of deceit. Dressed in a crisp white shirt and navy slacks, I felt the power of purpose mingling with the early morning coffee brewing in the kitchen. The aroma wafted through the air, wrapping around me like a warm embrace. I poured the steaming liquid into my favorite mug, the one that read "World's Okayest Employee," a playful jab at the relentless competition in the office. Looking at it made me chuckle, but today that title felt heavy on my chest. I was done settling for okay when I could aim for justice. I arrived at the office with a plan in mind. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I made my way through the maze of cubicles, each one filled with the chattering of my colleagues. My desk was situated near the back, an unassuming little nook that provided me with the seclusion I sometimes craved. I set my coffee down and opened my laptop, recalling the list I had drafted that outlined the truths that needed to be unearthed. The sound of heels clicked against the tile floor, and I turned to see Carla, my colleague and friend, striding toward me with her radiant smile. "Miles, you look like you have a secret to share. What did you get up to last night?" she asked, her enthusiasm and inviting warmth in my chilled, calculating world. "Just a boring night, really. Catching up on some reading," I replied, masking the whirlwind of thoughts swirling in my mind. "Come on, there has to be something more interesting than that." "Don't keep me in suspense." Carla leaned against my desk, laughter glinting in her eyes. I hesitated but decided to reveal a hint of what was brewing inside me. "Well, I've been looking into some, let's say, discrepancies in a couple of the project reports, just keeping my eye on things, you know." Her expression shifted, eyebrows knitting together. "Discrepancies like what? You know how serious that can be, right?" I leaned closer, lowering my voice as I scanned for any eavesdroppers. "You know Bob, right? He gets this glint in his eye whenever we work together, like he's playing a game and I'm just the pawn. I think I finally figured out some of the moves he's been making." Carla inhaled sharply, her intrigue evident. "What do you mean? Is he cheating?" I didn't want to tip my hand yet. "More like distorting the numbers, presenting them in a way that paints him in a better light. You know how much he loves glory. You always suspected he was a little slimy, but this is big." "What are you going to do?" Carla asked, leaning in closer, fervor illuminating her words. "I need proof. I'll get it today." I paused, letting her serious expression hang in the air. "But this has to stay between us. I can't afford to tip him off." "I won't tell a soul," she assured, crossing her heart dramatically. "But be careful, Bob has connections everywhere." "Trust me, I'm fully aware," I replied, the weight of my mission pressing down hard on my chest. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I buried myself in tasks that felt trivial compared to my larger goal of unmasking Bob. Each click of my keyboard felt like a countdown. I needed to strategically pick my moment and my weapon. While my heart raced with anticipation, my mind desperately plotted each step of the operation. Finally, a small window of opportunity opened. Bob had a meeting in the conference room just down the hall. As I gathered my courage, a dangerous excitement hummed through my veins. I grabbed my notebook and slipped into his office, quickly assessing the scene, papers piled high on his desk, a glaring badge of his chaotic brilliance, or perhaps the very nature of his deceit. I rifled through them, my heart sounding like drum beats in my ears. The faint sound of his voice floated from the conference room, a low buzzing that filled my gut with annoyance. Somehow, he always knew how to turn every interaction into an echo of his own accomplishments. I flipped through each document, feeling the sweat gather on my palms as I hunted for the connection I needed. A glimmer of color caught my eye, a graph he had manipulated to inflate his project metrics. Suddenly, a low growl broke from my throat, a combination of anger and contempt, but just as quickly as I felt the rush, I snapped to, reminding myself to remain focused. I jotted down notes and scanned through reports, paying close attention to detail. Each piece of information was vital, but time was running out. The clock ticked down as I heard footsteps nearing. I stepped away from his desk, my heart racing as I prepared to make my exit. With my notebook clutched to my chest, I turned to slip out when the door swung open, revealing Bob, his eyes wide with surprise. "Miles, what are you doing in here?" he demanded, an edge creeping into his tone. "Just checking on some files," I said, my voice steady. I hoped he couldn't see my heart thundering beneath my shirt. "I thought you might need some help," he frowned, suspicion dancing in his eyes. "I don't need your help, Miles, but if you must know, your input is severely lacking on the current project. I'm sure you are aware of the upcoming presentation." I forced a chuckle, hoping it didn't betray the fear dancing within me. "Of course, I'll get right on that. Just wanted to make sure we were on the same page." Bob stepped further into the office, his body language growing more aggressive. "You're always so eager to help, aren't you? Be careful, there might be a time when your eagerness leads you down a path you cannot return from," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. His words hung in the air like an unspoken threat, sending a chill racing down my spine. I stood taller, bolstering my resolve. "Just doing my job, Bob," I replied curtly. "Best make sure everything is in order, right, Miles. But remember, some things are best left alone." He turned and walked away, leaving me feeling like I was catching my breath after plunging underwater. I had gotten away with it. The game was on, and I silently vowed that I would start fighting back. I returned to my desk, my pulse racing, but the undercurrent of wisdom flowed through me. Knowledge was power, and I would collect every ounce of it until Bob was stripped bare of his false facade. Days rolled into a week, each moment building upon the last like pieces to a grand puzzle. I slipped into the office earlier and left later, living in the shadows as I pieced together the evidence. Every late-night sprint felt fueled by fire. The thrill of revenge coursed through me, igniting my every move. One day, after gathering enough of what could destroy him, Carla approached me again. "You seem different, Miles," she said, leaning against my desk, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The way you carry yourself, it's like you're about to unleash something big." "Maybe I am," I replied, my voice low as I glanced around. "I just need a few more pieces." She nodded, her worry evident. "Just be careful, okay? I have a bad feeling about this." "Noted," I said, a smirk creeping upon my face. "But if there's one thing I have learned from Bob, it's that playing it safe won't get you anywhere. Sometimes you have to take risks. Just promise me you won't go too far." "Promise," I replied, though inside I knew there was no stopping me now. Each piece, each lie I uncovered, pulled me deeper into the exhilarating thrill of vengeance. Soon, Bob would face the reckoning he so deeply deserved. That night, I sat in my dimly lit living room, staring intently at my laptop screen. The glow illuminated my face, shadows casting an ominous aura around me. I opened a document titled Bob Roberts, the Exposé, a collection of every misstep, every falsified report, and the countless times he manipulated figures to bolster his reputation. My heart raced as I clicked on different files, piecing together a coherent narrative like a twisted journalist on the hunt for the truth. Using my free time for research and surveillance, I had unraveled everything I needed. Bob's lies were like strands of spaghetti tangled in the depths of his arrogance. At long last, I found the document I needed, a key report that he'd submitted to the board with figures inflated so drastically it bordered on the absurd. Tonight would be the beginning of a reckoning. I picked up my phone, the weight of the device in my hand like a loaded weapon ready to strike. I drafted an anonymous email addressing it to the board of directors. Subject: concerns regarding recent reports, I typed, my fingers flying across the keyboard, my heart racing. "I'm writing to express concerns regarding the accuracy of some metrics reported for ongoing projects. Several figures do not align with documented expenses, and upon further investigation, appear to have been manipulated to present a misleading portrayal of our organization's performance. I have substantial evidence that I would be willing to share in order to ensure accountability and integrity within our team." My muscles tensed as I hovered my mouse over the send button. This was my shot. I was about to ignite the firestorm that would expose Bob for who he really was. I took a deep breath, whispering a silent prayer to the universe for confirmation that I was doing the right thing. "Here goes nothing," I muttered and pressed send. In that moment, I felt the first rush of satisfaction, the satisfaction of exposing a fraud. But even as the thrill coursed through my veins, I knew there was no turning back now. The web I had spun would soon unravel, forcing Bob to face his own reflection, a reflection marred with deceit and betrayal. The hunt would soon transform into a spectacle, and I was ready for the show. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry bees as I stepped into the Maplewood police station. The air felt heavy, thick with the smell of stale coffee and a tinge of something sharper, something that felt like the stale residue of stories left untold. My heart thumped heavily in my chest, a reminder that I was diving deeper into a world I had once thought was behind me. This was the place where the echoes of my past collided with the looming shadows of my future. Today was a crucial day. I was about to confront Chase, the man who I believed had stolen everything from me, including my sense of peace. I glanced around, taking in the stark white walls decorated with dull images of Maplewood's scenic past, trees, rivers, smiling faces. Now those smiles felt more like masks hiding secrets, and that made my gut churn with unease. Miles, a familiar voice called out, slicing through my thoughts like a knife. I turned to see Officer Martinez, her uniform neatly pressed, her dark hair pulled back into a tight bun. She looked the same as I remembered, professional, serious, but now there was a hint of concern etched across her brow. "You're looking for Chase, right?" she asked, leading me down the narrow hallway lined with bulletin boards and wanted posters. "I have a lead on him, this way." My pulse quickened as I followed her into a small interrogation room. The walls were painted a pale green and the air was tinged with the scent of disinfectant. The single table in the middle sagged under the weight of the shining police badge and a spiral notepad, the kind of room you only see in movies where confessions are made and truths are exposed. "Must warn you, seeing him might be difficult," she said, her voice softening almost to a whisper as she gestured for me to sit. "He's a loose cannon, Miles. You have to stay composed." I nodded, trying to shake off the swell of anger that threatened to boil over. Composed. That was the last thing I wanted to be. I wanted to scream, to unleash everything that had simmered inside me since that fateful day when Chase had taken away my brother. My brother had been a protector, my anchor through life's storms. And now he was gone. Every night I dreamed of undefinable things, full of anger and sorrow, and every day since had been a relentless cycle of grief and resentment. I struggled to keep my voice steady as I spoke. How can I find some semblance of justice if I can't confront the person who took him from me? Officer Martinez's eyes softened. "I get it, Miles, but trust me, this isn't going to be an easy conversation." I leaned forward. "I don't care how hard it is. I need to know what happened." She straightened, placing her hands on the table and looking me directly in the eye. "All right, just remember, be careful what you wish for. Sometimes the truth is more painful than the absence of it." Just then the heavy door creaked open, and in walked Chase, his scruffy hair and unshaven face painting him as your typical town thug. The faint smell of stale cigarettes clung to him. My stomach twisted. Looked more tired than I remembered, his clothes hanging loosely on his frame as if despair had worn him down. The moment our eyes met, a fire ignited inside me. I could feel the heat building up, swirling in my chest as he feigned ignorance, his lips twisting into a smile that felt more like a sneer. Well, if it isn't the grieving brother," he quipped, a false air of pleasure dripping from his voice. "How's your family doing? Oh wait, I forgot." My fists balled tightly at my sides. "Shut up." I fought hard to keep my voice low, to block out the rising swell of rage that surged through me like a tidal wave. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, but I do," he said, leaning back in his chair, the confidence brimming in his voice. "You think it's easy being me. You think I planned for this mess. You think you're a victim." I shot back, my voice rising, echoing in the small room. "You are the one who took everything from me." The truth hit him like a punch in the gut. The chaos of memories flooded back, the laughter, the shared moments with my brother, and then the agonizing silence that had followed. Chase's face tightened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of uncertainty, like a half-exposed bulb threatening to burn out. "Look, Miles, we were young, just dumb kids in a bad place, that's all it was." My heart raced. "A bad place? You call it a bad place, but it was a murder. My brother died because you chose to go down that path." I pushed the words out, each one weighted with the anger I had been holding back for years. Chase's facade cracked just a little. "I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear. It was an accident. I didn't pull the trigger." Suddenly, desperation surged through me, fueled by all the pain I had buried. "But you were there, you were part of it. You thought you could just waltz away like nothing happened, living your life while my brother is buried 6 feet under. What kind of person does that?" "A person who ended up in the wrong crowd," he shot back, his voice growing louder, his bravado slipping. "You think I wanted this? I had my own demons. I made mistakes, sure, but I didn't choose this life." "What you mean is that you didn't expect to be caught," I spat. "You could have changed. You could have admitted what happened, but instead you ran. You hid like a coward." I could feel the flush of anger coloring my cheeks, and I wanted to scream, to unleash every unbearable emotion that had built up over the years. What right did he have to justify his actions, to twist his mistakes into something that ultimately didn't matter? Chase leaned forward, a fire igniting in his eyes. "You think you know me? You think you know everything." His voice trembled with a mixture of anger and fear, and I could see the way his hands shook slightly. "You don't know a thing about my life or what I've been through. Then tell me, because all I know is what you took from me. All I ever wanted was my brother back. Do you know how that feels?" My voice wavered, the weight of everything crashing down as the words tumbled out. For a moment his bravado faltered, and I thought I detected a hint of regret in his eyes, but then he snapped back, the facade rising again. You think your pain is special, everyone has their story. I'm not the villain in your fairy tale, Miles. The disdain in his tone ignited something primal inside me, and I leaned in closer, teeth gritted, my heart racing faster. You want to play the victim, fine, play it, but one day I will have my justice. I will see you pay for what you did, Chase. Justice, he sneered. What do you know about justice? You have no idea what I've faced since that night. Everyone thinks I'm guilty, and maybe I am, but it wasn't like that. You don't get to judge me. Oh, I do. You're standing in front of me, and I want you to know that this isn't over. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor, the sound like nails against a chalkboard. I was done. Chase hadn't changed. He was still the same self-absorbed person he had always been. I turned toward Officer Martinez, who stood quietly in the corner of the room, an observer to our unraveling emotional exchanges. I need to go, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I can't do this. Miles, she said gently, but I shook my head. This was making me feel raw and exposed. It felt as if I was ripping open wounds that had begun scabbing over. I stepped out of the small room, the fluorescent lights no longer buzzing but screaming in my ears. As I walked away, I could barely hear Chase's mocking laughter trailing behind me, taunting me like a persistent shadow I couldn't shake. You think you can just walk away from this? He called after me, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You're just a scared little kid playing hero. You think that'll change anything? I paused, turning back, every muscle in my body tense and tingling with leftover adrenaline. One day the truth will come out, Chase, and when it does, I'll be right here waiting to see you fall. I stepped outside, the brisk air welcoming me like an old friend. The weight on my shoulders felt heavier than when I had entered, and the pain in my chest clawed at me, but there was something else too. A spark of determination ignited within. This was far from over. I needed to dig deeper to find the truth that Chase was hiding. I had to become the architect of my own justice. The night was a thick blanket of darkness wrapped tightly around Maplewood, Texas. I could hardly see a foot in front of me as I stood outside the former coffee shop where I used to spend countless hours dreaming of a brighter future. Now it felt like a hollow tomb, a grave for my aspirations, and tonight it would serve as the battleground for my revenge. My heart thundered in my chest, each beat a war drum calling me closer to this very moment. I could still see the ghostly outlines of past conversations lingering in the air around me. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and heated pastries from those days echoed faintly in my mind, but now that aroma was tarnished, tainted by the betrayal that gnawed at my soul. With a steadying breath, I pulled my jacket tighter around me and glanced at my phone. It was 10 o'clock. I was supposed to meet Daniel. Just thinking about him smoldered the fire of rage in my belly. I had been planning this for weeks. Have to see it from my side, Miles. Daniel's voice was smooth, practiced, and irritatingly patient when he had shattered my world 2 months ago. I could still picture him leaning against the counter, that cocky smile on his face as if he were about to share a joke instead of dropping a bombshell. I was offered a promotion. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I recalled my own voice answering, the way it quivered as disbelief washed over me. Once in a lifetime, what are you letting them walk all over me? He had laughed, a sound I once adored, but now it felt foreign and cruel. A car purred down Maplewood Avenue, its headlights sweeping across the street and illuminating the windows of the closed shops, and I forced myself to breathe through the anger. This was not the time to lose my composure. I had a plan, and I was not leaving this night without satisfying my thirst for retribution against the person who stole everything I held dear. The anticipation left my skin prickling. I had received a message earlier that day, the kind that gave me a twist of joy in my gut, detailing Daniel's hideout, a house on the outskirts of town where he was holed up with some friends. The strange thrill of it coursed through me. In the shadows, I spotted a figure walking towards me. Daniel stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets, casually lit by the glow of a nearby street lamp. He looked the same loose-fitting jeans, same baseball cap tilted, but there was something darker in his eyes. Hey, Miles, he called, his tone deceptively easy. You made it. I could tell he had no idea what was coming. Of course I did, I replied, managing to keep my voice steady, hiding the storm surging within me. I wouldn't miss this opportunity for the world. Daniel chuckled, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty behind his amusement. You really need to loosen up, man. It's just a party. It's not like I'm doing anything illegal. Just a party. I repeated his words, letting them simmer in my throat like something rancid. Kind of like how it was just a promotion for you, huh? Just a little career advancement while you simultaneously make me the scapegoat for your greed. He ran a hand through his hair, feigning indifference. Look, Miles, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. We were friends for a long time. You know it was a tough decision. Tough. I bit back an incredulous laugh, feeling the weight of all the unshed tears clawing up my throat. You think it was tough for me? You ripped my life apart, Daniel, and all for what? A couple thousand more in your paycheck while I'm neck deep in bills. It felt good to voice these thoughts, even if releasing them felt like letting out a wild animal clawing at the back of my mind. Even now, with anger coursing hot through my veins, it was too calm of a reaction. I was carefully navigating through my best execution of revenge. Daniel shifted from one foot to the other, his bravado cracking under the pressure. Come on, that was weeks ago. You need to get over it. Get over it. I practically spat the words. That's rich coming from you. Do you ever stop to think how it feels to be betrayed by the person you trusted the most? He shrugged then, a boyish grin creeping back on his face. You'll get through it. Besides, I thought you missed the fire in your life. You should just come to this party and see the good side of things. The word fire sent shivers running down my back. I pictured that fire not as a flame lighting up the darkness, but as a raging inferno, consuming everything and leaving ash in its wake. I don't need a good side of things, Daniel. I need you to realize the damage you've done. Come on, quit being dramatic. His playful scoff lit my anger into something closer to rage. I took a step closer to him, feeling the tension between us grow like the quiet before a thunderstorm. Dramatic, I echoed, watching his composure unravel piece by piece. You have no idea, do you? My voice dropped to a low hiss. This is about so much more than you understand, Daniel. You think I'm just going to sit back and let you live in your little silver-lined world? Not a chance. As his smirk faded, I knew the moment I struck a nerve. I had pushed him just far enough. The vulnerable man behind the facade was starting to reveal himself. The look in his eyes soured as he took a long pause, realization dawning. What are you talking about? Is that confusion I see in your eyes? I taunted, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You really thought I'd just go away quietly, that I would let you keep everything you've stolen from me? Who said I've stolen anything? He shot back, his bravado growing. Let's count the ways, shall we? Your smile manipulated me into trusting you. You took my dreams, my business ideas, and my clients, and what did you give me in return? A shattered future. I stepped closer, fueled by the fire swirling within me. You stripped me of everything worth living for. Okay, chill out, he said, holding up a hand as if to ward off my wrath. I get it, you're mad, you feel wrong, but this is getting ridiculous. You really think you can hold this against me forever? Forever. The word struck cold against my thoughts. No, I didn't want forever. I wanted a singular moment, a crystallized moment of reckoning where I served him his comeuppance. Daniel, I began, forcing my tone to drop to something more sinister, wrapping my words in a velvet grip. I'm not holding on to this forever. I just want to make sure you understand that there are consequences for your actions. I think you've had one too many bad days, Miles, he snapped back, lips curling. Grasping for straws won't change anything. This doesn't have to escalate. His words hung thick in the air, tangible and suffocating. I reached into my pocket and retrieved the slip of paper. Oh, but it is already escalating, I said, brandishing it before him. Would you like to know what this is? What did you do? Daniel's eyes narrowed, suspicion creeping into them. What have you planned? It's simple, I said softly, loving how the weight of what I had in my hands slowly crushed his bravado. You and your little friends are about to have a party crash that you won't ever forget. I'd call it a celebration of sorts. Are you threatening me? I call it justice. And just before I tossed the paper aside, I could feel the first drops of rain begin to splash against the pavement. The dark clouds above thickened, roiling like a brewing storm. I took a few steps back, savoring the shock reflected across Daniel's face. You're coming with me. Like hell I am, he shot back, taking a step in the opposite direction. The rain gathered momentum, and the first rumble of thunder echoed across the sky, mirroring the turbulent feelings churning within me. I held up a finger. One hint of your friends discovering what I've set in motion, and you'll wish you had stayed in the secure lane of that coffee shop. What have you done? He asked again, his voice shaky now, but with the slightest hint of anger still palpable. The storm had broken now in earnest, and the rain poured down, slashing at us like a ferocious beast unleashed. I smiled at him, watching the fear creep into his eyes. Time to face the music, I said, relishing every syllable, enjoying this new power shift. This isn't happening, he shouted, his earlier bravado dissolving in the face of chaos. Too late, I replied, my heart pounding like a war drum again as I turned and strode toward my car parked further down the street. Rain cascaded around us, a symphony of noise contrasting with the deafening silence of our confrontation. Each step echoed the climactic moments leading us to this point, each beep of thunder urging us toward our dark destinies. Fear hung thick in the air, and I could almost taste it as I approached my car. I turned back, seeing him standing there, a figure drenched and helpless against the fury of both the storm and his inevitable reckoning. You can run, but no one escapes their past forever. Tonight, Daniel, you will learn the price of betrayal. The last thing I saw as I climbed into my car and slammed the door shut was Daniel standing in the rain, a lone figure swallowed by the shadows, his expressions shifting as dread sank deeper and deeper into him. A thrill raced through me, a wild rush overpowering everything else. This was it. The night had begun, and I would not stop until I had the revenge I so desperately craved. With the engine roaring to life, the world outside faded into blurs of rain and shadow. My resolve crystallizing as the storm raged on, I stood on the porch of the old Anderson family home, the air thick with the smell of burning leaves and the lingering scent of regret. It was still dusk, the silvery light of the setting sun casting long shadows across the pavement, making me feel as if they were stretching out, grasping for the past I was so desperate to leave behind. As I looked out at the crowd gathered in the yard, their faces illuminated by flickering lanterns, I felt the weight of impending confrontation slide down my spine. This was it, the moment I had secretly dreamed about for so long but had also feared. Are they all here? I murmured to myself, glancing at the motley collection of familiar faces, old friends, old enemies, and those who had simply drifted into the story of my life. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the storm of emotions swirling within me. The anticipation in my chest was a mixture of excitement and dread, that same feeling one gets before a storm. "Hey, Miles," a voice broke through my thoughts. I turned to see my old friend Carla, her auburn hair golden in the evening light. She was like a breeze from the past, bringing echoes of simpler times. "You okay? You look a little pale." "I'm fine, Carla," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just a lot on my mind." "Yeah, I get it. Everyone's been talking about Nick and that shady business of his. Are you really going through with this?" She bit her lip, concern etched across her face. I nodded slowly, my resolve hardening with each moment. "I have to. This is bigger than just me. You know how people can be, right? This could blow up," she warned, her eyes darting towards the crowd that continued to grow. "I know, but if I do not stand up for myself now, I will regret it forever." The words felt heavy as they landed in the still evening air. I could feel the cool breeze ruffling my shirt, but it did little to ease the heat pooling in my gut. Carla studied me, her gaze piercing through the defenses I had put up. "Just promise me you will be careful, okay?" "I promise," I said, not quite believing my own words. As she walked away to mingle with the others, I took another deep breath, focusing on the tableau ahead of me. The sound of laughter mixed with talking drifted in from the yard, but a part of me felt disconnected, floating beyond the reach of the camaraderie shared by old friends and would-be enemies. It was amusing, really. The very people who had once laughed with me were now in some small way spectators to my reckoning. My friend Derek strolled over, an easygoing smile on his face. "Dude, the party is just starting. Why so serious?" I chuckled lightly. "Just trying to figure out how to put this into motion without it blowing up. Look, you have to do what you think is right. Just make sure you include some punchlines," he joked, nudging me playfully. "I will, but when have I ever been the comedian in our friend group?" "Fair point. Well, just remember, whatever happens, we have your back." He clapped me on the shoulder, his expression earnest and reassuring. "Thanks, man. It means a lot." As the evening progressed, the moment drew closer, like a winding tunnel leading to an inevitable confrontation. The air buzzed with anticipation, and I caught snippets of conversations held amongst the guests. They were blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Across the yard, I noticed Nick standing with a few of his cronies. His laughter rang out, loud and raucous, echoing through the air. A lump formed in my throat at the sight of him, the very embodiment of everything I despised. Man who had destroyed what little was left of my family, who had trampled over my dreams, was now enjoying the life I once yearned for. A pang of anger surged through me, and I clenched my fists tightly as I tried to focus on the bigger picture. "Miles, Miles," the voice pulled me from my thoughts. I turned to see Lisa, my former coworker, rushing toward me with urgency. "You have to do this. I don't want him getting away with what he did." "I know, Lisa," I said, my heart racing at her intensity. "This isn't just for me, it's for everyone he has hurt. I still can't believe he got away with it all for so long," she said, her voice tremulous. "You are brave for standing up to him. I wish I had your guts." "Just following what feels right," I said, though the weight of those words weighed heavy on my conscience. Then I spotted my brother Ryan in the crowd. He caught my eye, his expression anxious but resolute. I had been avoiding him for weeks now, ever since my plan started brewing. I had dragged him unwittingly into this mess, and now the time had come for me to face both him and Nick. Clenching my jaw, I approached him, attempting to gauge his feelings. "Ryan," I spoke, my voice steady despite the tremors in my heart. "Hey, Miles," he replied, fidgeting as he looked over his shoulder at the feasting crowd, then back to me. "Are you sure about this?" "I have to be," I admitted. "This is my chance to finally put an end to everything," he sighed, running a hand through his tousled hair. "You know their connections run deep, right? I mean, Nick has friends, powerful friends. They won't just let this happen." "I am aware of what we are up against," I said, trying to keep the edge of panic from tinging my voice. "But all I can think about is the feeling of helplessness we have all endured. I need to take a stand not just for myself, but for everyone he has destroyed along the way. Just promise me that you will tread lightly. Do not do anything too reckless." "I do not want to see you getting hurt," he urged, concern pooling in his bright blue eyes. "I promise I'll be careful," I assured him, though his worried expression lodged itself in the back of my mind. The tension between us was like static, and I could feel it deepening as I prepared myself for what was to come. Taking a deep breath, I looked around, noticing the myriad faces surrounding me. Each person had their own history with Nick, their own wounds, and I needed to rally them. "Listen up, everyone," I called out, my voice cutting through the din like a knife. The chatter slowed, and a hush fell across the yard as all eyes turned toward me. I stood taller, trying to project confidence even as my heart raced. "We are here today not just to enjoy a little party, but because this is a moment of reckoning. Nick has stepped over the line one too many times, and it is time we stand united against him." The crowd was silent, processing my words. I could see the familiar faces amongst them displaying the flickering emotions of anger, disbelief, and curiosity. Carla was front and center, her brow furrowed in concern. "What do you mean?" she called out. "You think he has wronged us all?" "I know he has," I replied, stepping closer as the murmurs grew. "He took the very foundation of our community and shattered it. He hurt families, ruined lives, including my own. This isn't just my fight, it is all of ours." A low, murmuring rumble spread like waves through the crowd. "He needs to be held accountable," I added, finding strength in the growing tide of understanding. "And together we can make that happen." "Together," a voice called from the back. It was a former football teammate of Nick's, and I could see skepticism written across his face. "And how do you propose we do that? If we each share our stories, he won't be able to hide behind his false persona anymore," I said, feeling a spark ignite within me as my plan took shape. "If we expose his lies and unite against him, we can finally take him down." "But he's dangerous," Carla interjected, concern dripping from her words. "What if he retaliates? What if he comes after you or someone else in this group?" "Let him," I said firmly, the conviction in my voice startling even myself. "I am ready for the battle. If we do not stand up for ourselves now, we will forever be stuck in the shadows he casts. Who stands with me?" As the tension in the yard thickened, a few reluctant hands began to rise. "I will," a stranger called out from the back, gripping his beer tightly. "Nick wrecked my sister's life. I am with you." More hands began to join, slowly at first until there was an eruption of support. The sound of unity, passionate and vibrant, struck a chord in me. My heart pounded against my chest as I glanced at Ryan. His eyes met mine, a critical moment of understanding passing between us. As I turned back to the crowd, emboldened by their energy, I felt a rush of power. "Then let us share our stories. Let him hear our voices and feel the weight of our pain." The crowd erupted into applause, spurring on my momentum. One by one, stories started to emerge, emails and old receipts tied to the wrongs Nick had committed. The air around us thickened with the scent of determination, betrayal, and its long overdue reckoning, and in that moment we were no longer alone. We were finally a collective force bound by truth and the shared desire for justice. The murmurs swelled, and I could hear snippets of stories interweaving as more people stepped forward. Each tale added to the cacophony of pain and anger, a symphony of the wounded against one man's tyranny. I could see the little sparks of defiance igniting in my audience. There was strength in unity. As the flames of our anger grew, I spotted Nick's facade starting to falter. He had been reveling in his false sense of security, and now, as the murmurs turned into cries of defiance, he stood frozen, his bravado waning. I beckoned for silence again, feeding off the energy rolling off the crowd. "Tonight we reclaim our stories. Tonight we take back our power." The crowd exploded again, their voices a visceral roar that seemed to shake the very roots of the grass beneath our feet. But even amidst the rising chorus of rebellion, a sliver of doubt slashed through my heart. What if I had stirred too much? What if the monsters we had all been so afraid of began to crawl out of the shadows? Nick's face twisted with a mix of emotions. Anger, shame, humiliation. It was perfect. And just as I thought our momentum was too great to falter, he found his voice, sharp and loaded with venom. "Is this really what you all want, to band together to dredge old wounds?" His voice rang out, challenging the solidarity forming in front of him. "It is laughable. You think this is a joke?" I challenged, stepping forward into the light, my heartbeat drumming a quick tempo in my ears. "You've hurt too many of us. We refuse to be silent any longer. I have done nothing wrong." He shouted, but there was a tremor underneath, something hollowing out his bravado, and I could see through the cracks forming in his carefully crafted armor. "Then prove it," I cried out, riding the wave of enthusiasm rising in the crowd. "There are dozens of us here who have stories different from the perfect life you love to boast about. We are breaking the silence tonight." Laughter and cries erupted from the crowd as Nick's expression turned white-hot with fury. It became clearer that I had struck a chord, and it felt good, too good. The atmosphere shifted. While the crowd pressed on, gathering strength and confidence, I felt Nick's retaliation lurking beneath the surface like a beast ready to pounce. Our voices were building to an incredible climax, and I watched as uncertainty cloaked Nick's once unshakable confidence, but I could not deny the primal urge to keep them coming. "Look around, Nick. You may think you have woven a web of power, but every individual you have wronged is here tonight, and we are not ashamed any longer. We are standing united. We do not need to keep quiet any longer. The echoes of justice are rolling in, and you will be washed away with them." The crowd surged with energy, their support pushing against the boundaries of fear that had long kept us bound. Perhaps the weight of the night would hang on my shoulders, but I was ready. I had ignited a flame set to burn away the history of cowardice and allow the light of justice to triumph. As I stood there, adrenaline coursing through my veins, I felt something shift, a change not just in me but in the entire atmosphere. With a final rallying cry, I shouted, "For every moment we lost, for every truth we buried, we take our power back tonight," and it was done. The crowd erupted into cheers, a binding force that amplified my courage 1,000 times over. Nick was backpedaling, his denial faltering under the weight of our combined anger, but it was only the beginning. As my heart thundered with each beat, something deep within me affirmed that there was no going back. No more hiding, just echoes of justice reverberating through the air, promising a reckoning long overdue.